right, what's up? What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Fast Five Sports after a 1 week hiatus. Happy holidays to you all. Hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah if you celebrate that. Happy Kwanzaa if you celebrate that. And a great New Year to come as well. I'm Matt Infield, back with our digital king, Jacob Gallant. Our Griffin Demaray is, I think he's back in the homeland of New Jersey. Well-deserved vacation. I was just in the homeland of New York. Got back last night, and we are ready to rock. How's Christmas? Sound good?
Good. Held the fort down here, but you know we gotta keep the lights on around here. So
for sure, and they're probably worth
sacrifices for the team. But
hey, a company breakfast or a company lunch, right? Company dinner, whatever
delicious,
it was.
Yeah,
hooked it up.
A delicious catered meal. So
love to hear that. Appreciate the boss at Action 5 always holding us down on the holidays. All right, busy. You know, obviously the end of the year, but a busy time in the sports world. Really on all fronts. We have a big game in the 901 tonight, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, kicking off in a little under 4 hours. We're going to hit on that. We're going to hit on a big Memphis basketball matchup tomorrow against regional rivals Ole Miss and much more. But we have to start with the record-setting Memphis Grizzlies last night at home against the Toronto Raptors, beating them and putting up 155 points, the most by any team in the NBA this season and the most in franchise history, beating a mark that was previously set at 152 in that record-setting win over the Oklahoma City Thunder a couple of years ago. 155-126, the final from FedEx Forum. I believe 8 different Grizzlies scored in double figures, led by Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey, who had, I think, probably the best game of his career against his home country team. 21 points, 16 rebounds, 9 of 15 from the field. He had a couple blocks in there as well. Also had, this was an elite jersey matchup. Raptors throwbacks, Grizzlies, the Vancouver throwbacks.
I would argue perfect.
Yeah, the 30th anniversary of both of those franchises, or of the Raptors, or the NBA coming to Canada. Also had an elite ejection from Darko Rajakovic, who was a former Grizzlies assistant, just went nuclear in the fourth quarter of that game with his team down really big. But, yeah, Grizzlies shoot 54% from the field, 40% from three. Just a really outstanding offensive performance, and a reminder that this team, while we still have some things to figure out about it, I mean, they've been the best offense in the NBA this season, and that was on display once again last night.
I think we're at the point where you should ask if the Grizzlies are the deepest team in the NBA because they've got a lot of bench guys that can go.
100%.
When you got Kennard, Pippen, LaRavia, Brandon Clark, Conchar, all guys worthy of getting minutes, and there's a lot of teams out there that can barely get 3 bench guys out on the floor without going crazy. So, yeah, just an insane box score, too, with every starter was over at least plus 20.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Lowest score of the starters was Ja Morant with 15.
Yeah.
He had 9 assists to go with it. Really, I think that's kind of the depth of this team shows itself in a couple of ways. You look at the minutes played of the starters and how low it is, and people are complaining. But really, to me, if you can win these games while limiting minutes and keeping these guys as fresh as you can for the long haul, especially given some of the injuries the Grizzlies have dealt with the last couple of years, I think that's awesome. Now, obviously, you're going to have games where you're probably going to need Ja, Jaren, Dez, and a couple of the other guys to play 30, 35 minutes. And that's fine. Like, these guys playing these limited minutes now is not going to hold them back from playing larger loads when the time calls for it. Really, I think the other way that the depth really shows itself, and I think is great, is years past, it felt like if Ja Morant was not going nuclear, the Grizzlies had limited paths to victory. They were deep enough around him, but they could, but it was a lot tougher. And now this year, I think with the combination of the depth and even someone like Jaren Jackson Jr. taking the step forward he has, there are a lot of nights this year where I think there have been more games over the last couple of months where I think Ja has been just like fine. Maybe even sometimes there have been a couple of games where he's been really quiet, and for the most part, they've survived and they've won games despite that. So I think I've thought this is the deepest team in the league coming into the season. And again, right now, you look at last night's box score, missing Jay Huff, who is listed as questionable. He might make his return tonight on the road against the Pelicans. And then, of course, G.G. Jackson, who we hope makes his return in January, and Vince Williams Jr., who I think is probably still about a month away, if I remember reading correctly. But, yeah, I mean, those are...
Marcus Smart as well.
And Marcus Smart, yeah. And Marcus Smart, apparently, we're getting an update on his right index finger injury. He's hurt his finger 2 years in a row here, which is kind of wacky. But, yeah, I mean, you're missing a lot of guys that are legitimate rotation pieces. And in the case of Gigi and Vince Williams Jr., a couple of really intriguing young pieces, and you're still able to put up, 55. I think it's the fourth time this year. It's the third or fourth time this year they put up 140-plus points.
It's really too many players to be getting all these minutes when all those guys are healthy.
Yeah.
So it's a good problem to have. It's going to help you at the trade deadline if they need to improve somewhere.
Yeah, consolidate a little bit, yeah.
Maybe like a Kennard gets dealt because you got to think he's probably one of those guys that's losing minutes when they get Vince and Gigi back.
I think Konchar's probably the obvious guy that gets dealt because he's kind of, he got some run last night, but he's fallen out of rotation a little bit. Yeah. But you're hearing these rumblings that teams like the Nets that the Grizzlies are connected to for maybe a Cam Johnson or a Dorian Finney-Smith, they're interested in John Konchar. The money maybe works where if you throw in Kennard as well, you can consolidate a little bit and add maybe a higher impact piece that's going to get real rotational minutes. Also, think about the depth. It helps the situation where Santi Aldama last night hurts his ankle really badly. He's going to miss some time, TBD on how much. Thankfully, it's just a sprain, and hopefully he can make a relatively quick recovery, but it was a nasty-looking injury. But now you've got Huff coming back tonight, and, again, they just have so much depth at really every end of the roster that when these injuries pop up, they can survive for a stretch of time. Now, obviously, if major injury happened to a guy like Ja or Dez or Jared, that might be a little bit of a different situation. But even then, they missed Ja for 8 games in a row earlier in the season, and they were fine. Obviously, they're not at their best without Ja Morant, but they showed they could survive without him. So hopefully Santi gets back soon as well because, he's played awesome this season. Yeah. He's been like their breakout guy. Probably one of the best 6 men in the league. Definitely towards the upper end of that discussion. So hopefully his ankle injury heals up soon. But yeah, man, nutty box score. They improved to 21-10 on the season, 14-4 at home. You really feel like once again, just like it was 2 seasons ago when they were basically unbeatable at FedEx Forum, feels like Memphis is a place once again where it is really tough to beat the Grizzlies when they're at anywhere near full strength because that place is rocking, the energy's there, and they feed off it. And, yeah, just a really impressive performance. They turn around tonight and face the New Orleans Pelicans at Smoothie King Center as we get a look at our upcoming schedule, courtesy of Jacob here. It's a place that's treated them pretty well over the last year or so.
The lowly Pelicans.
Right.
They are in a real bad spot.
They've had the Pelicans have had the injury luck this season that the Grizzlies had last season. Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, DeJounte Murray, just all these guys up and down the roster. That's how I've talked about the fact that they traded a guy like Dyson Daniels, who's really started to break out for the Hawks. Yeah, it's been a very, very rough go. I believe they're last in the Western Conference at last check.
Yeah, they are 5-26 dead last.
So, tough for them. But after that, this 5-game road trip is, I think, where we're going to find out a lot about this team and how good they really are. Are they truly contenders in the West? Are they a championship contender? Because if they are, I think you're going to see it on this road trip. Now, might not be as big of a beast of a road trip as you thought maybe coming into the season, because I think you look at New Orleans, OKC, Phoenix, Sacramento, and Golden State. I think a lot of people thought those might be 5 playoff teams in the West before the season. New Orleans has had their injury woes, but still, OKC, obviously they've been the best team in the West all season. They are the favorites to come out of the West. And there's kind of this, I think, bubbling rivalry that could turn into something because, in theory, OKC and the Grizzlies could be 2 of the teams that are really the future of the Western Conference. And there are a couple of other teams in that discussion as well. But obviously you've got the SGA versus Ja kind of narrative and discussion. And then, Chet's hurt right now, but they're so, if the Grizzlies are not the deepest team in the league, I think that, or the deepest team in the West at least, I think you have to say it's OKC because they just have so many guys they could throw at you. At Phoenix on New Year's Eve, look, Phoenix kind of struggled a little bit lately, but I think Devin Booker is still hurt. I know he didn't play on Christmas night, so TBD if he's back by New Year's Eve. But really, when they've had Kevin Durant this season, they've been very, very tough to beat. They beat, who was it on Christmas? Denver on Christmas night. Pretty good game. That was a fun game. A bunch of bench guys contributed really well in that game. Sacramento they're in a rut as well, and they had a really bad loss last night on a 4-point play by Jaden Ivey in the final seconds. And then the Warriors have come back to earth a little bit. since they got off that really hot start where they were like the 2 or 3 seed in the West early in the season. They lost. That was a thriller against the Lakers on Christmas night. But still, Warriors, Grizzlies, and especially in Golden State, and after what the Grizzlies did to the Warriors here a couple weeks ago, they're going to be out for blood in that game. They're going to want some revenge. But I think it's a road trip where, you got to win tonight. And then if you split the next 4, I think that's cool. Like, if you go 3-2 on this road trip, I think that you sign up for that any day of the week. But, yeah, this will be a stretch with a couple of matchups where we will really see what this team's capable of.
Even the worst team of the bunch after New Orleans, Sacramento, is still a really talented team that just kind of can't figure it out right now.
Yeah.
And, I want to believe they can get there, but at the same time, it's looking really bad right now. The addition of DeRozan hasn't really worked out. I think it's kind of mucking up their offense with all of his mid-range.
People love guys like that, pure hoopers, as some people would describe them. But
huge DeRozan fan.
But I admire the skill. But like you said, when he's taking 20-foot mid-range shots, it takes away kind of the flow of the offense and the threes that they can generate and the pace that they can play at with the Aaron Fox.
I see a lot of that from Julius Randle, too, on a nightly basis, but,
Thanks for Cat. All right, but that's that. Yeah, Grizzlies either way. I mean, playing well right now for the most part. Obviously, tough loss against Clippers the other night, but take care of business, put up a record-setting performance against the Raptors last night, and now we see what they're made of on this 5-game road trip that starts tonight on the second night of a back-to-back in New Orleans. All right, from the pros to college and the other team that plays at FedEx Forum, Memphis Tigers, big one tomorrow against regional rivals Ole Miss on the heels of really just kind of a game where they were dominated from start to finish at home against Mississippi State last Saturday. I know you were at least a little bit happy about that. Not very happy about that, but
yeah.
Mississippi State is a good team, though.
I think they're a very, very good team. They also dominated Pitt earlier in the year, who's also a really good team ranked at the time. So Memphis was beat the whole game, but I don't think that's a loss that you panic over just because I think Mississippi State's a really quality team. Again, if you come out and do the same thing against Ole Miss, then there might be some cause for concern.
Yeah, I think tomorrow is big for a couple of reasons. I think the biggest thing is this is really your last shot to get a win that you could put on your resume and really show to the committee and help you either get in the tournament. Hopefully it's not at that point. Hopefully there's not a situation like last year where they wet their pants in conference play and you need your non-conference wins to keep you afloat. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But if you win tomorrow, this is really kind of like the last resume-defining game that you can put on your resume for a higher seed. And then two, just kind of like you said, losing 2 games at home in 7 days to a pair of schools that, Ole Miss is more of a regional rival, but I think that there's enough of a closeness and proximity to Mississippi State, and a lot, they're going for a lot of, in theory, similar players and whatnot. I think that if you lose 2 games in 7 days to those 2 schools, even if those are quality teams, because they're both at home, there are going to be people asking, what direction is this team going in when, for the most part, everything's been positive this year. They've lost 3 games, 1 to Auburn, 1 to Mississippi State, 1 to Arkansas State. The problem is just that 2 of them have been at home. And when you lose those games at home, obviously, like I said, Mississippi State is not a loss to panic over, and they're a good team. But thought is you have to defend home court. And the fact that they got that game at home should have been a big advantage for them, and Bulldogs had no interest in that. So, and Ole Miss comes in, number 16 in the country. I will say, look at their schedule. It is not overly impressive in terms of their non-conference wins. The best is probably, BYU or Louisville. But, lately they beat up on Queens, Southern, and Southern Miss, and Lindenwood. So I think this could be the toughest game that the Rebels have had all season. And it's kind of, obviously they're going to have plenty of chances in SEC play to really stamp themselves as a tournament team potentially. But this is probably going to be their toughest test of the season so far. I think that could be an advantage for Memphis. They've played a bunch of these games already.
Yeah, you could probably argue the loss to Purdue was probably a bigger test, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. In terms of games won, but yes, obviously,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Purdue game went down to the wire as well.
That SEC schedule is going to be brutal, so that might be a game where they're looking like they need to win just to keep their momentum rolling as well.
Yeah, and again, you want to go into the new year and you want to go into the start of conference play because this is a non-conference finale. You want to go in with a little bit of momentum and a little bit of a good feeling because then after that, they travel to Boca to play FAU next Thursday as we take a look at, I believe we have the Tigers' upcoming schedule as well. And I think that if you can beat the Rebels tomorrow and restore some of those good feelings going into FAU next week, you feel a lot better about your chances in conference play. And then a pair of home games. North Texas might be the best of the rest in terms of the AAC teams this year because there are not a lot of good teams coming out of the AAC by the looks of it. Home against East Carolina. To me, I think they should sweep the conference games. On paper, they should probably win every conference game. Is it going to work out like that? I doubt it because it's college basketball and weird things happen and upsets occur on any given night. But, yeah, after tomorrow, your last chance to really make a statement is probably at the conference tournament. Barring one of these AAC teams turning it on and really kind of proving that they deserve more recognition and more luster than what they're getting so far. So, yeah, I think tomorrow is a big, big test for the Tigers just to restore some of those good feelings and try and make a statement going into the start of conference play. Because, the non-conference schedule has been really good so far. There's no two ways about it. They have still, I believe, the most quad one wins in the country with 5. So it's been really good. There's been a couple slip-ups, which was to be expected. But get back on the right track tomorrow, go into conference play, and then roll from there. All right, as we alluded to before, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl going down in just a few hours at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium between a pair of teams that are familiar to this game. Arkansas, it feels like, I think it's their 7th time in this game. They were here.
It is.
Go ahead.
I was looking up. Our trivia today is Liberty Bowl themed, and that was
okay.
I left that off, but Arkansas has played in the Liberty Bowl more times than any other team with 7.
I was here. The first AutoZone Liberty Bowl I covered was here 2 years ago when they played Kansas and won that game in I forgot how many overtimes that was, but wild game.
3 overtimes.
3. KJ Jefferson and Jalen Daniels for Kansas going back and forth.
That might be in the trivia later.
It was a nutty game. But I think that game 2 years ago was the most packed I've ever seen that stadium. And admittedly, I've never been inside for a Southern Heritage Classic, especially with Jackson State. But Arkansas fans showed out as expected, just given the proximity to Fayetteville and the state in general. And there's a lot of Arkansas fans around here. Kansas fans really showed out as well because I think that was their first bowl game in 15 years or something like that. So they traveled very well for that. So Texas Tech is not quite on that kind of bowl drought, but curious to see how the Red Raider faithful shows up and shows out in this one. Red Raiders 8-4 in the season. Arkansas, like we talked about, we called this early in the season that they had a path to a bowl, and here it is. They're back in this game once again. They can win their 7th game of the season, which I don't know if a lot of people pegged this team for 7 wins preseason.
Yeah, a lot of people were kind of already predicting this was going to be the end of Pittman, and I think he kind of did enough to save his job.
Yeah.
But a bowl win would just kind of be the cherry on the top of it because you overperformed. Texas Tech's a solid team, but it's a winnable game.
No.
It's not like,
I'm going to
Texas Tech will probably put up a lot of points just because every time I think of Texas Tech, I think of a lot of offense.
It's just
and then their last 2 games, they put up over 50 points. So
we have, what is the line on this? Where'd it go? Texas Tech favored by 2.5.
Okay.
Over under 59.5. So yeah, they're expecting like a 31-28-ish kind of game.
Yeah.
That could be fun. I'm down for that. But yeah, I think that, and again, here's the thing. With these games, as we've seen throughout bowl season so far, anything can happen.
Yeah.
That's what I think I've taken more appreciation this year than ever before because I think that there's this idea that if you're not playing the college football playoff, that playing in whatever random bowl you want to name, the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl or the Hawaii Bowl or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. Man, these games are fun, and these teams deserve the reward. And wild stuff happens. I think that's all great for the sport. So
we got 6 overtimes last night.
We got 6 overtimes last night between
and Toledo,
and Pitt because Pat Narduzzi's a coward. I spent Christmas Eve at a friend's house, and we watched all 5 overtimes of my USF Bulls taking down San Jose State in the Hawaii Bowl. That was pretty wild as well. No cowardice there, just
respect.
Not great football all the way around, but it was entertaining for sure. So yeah, I think I've learned to appreciate these games more this year, the meaningless bowl games, because they're fun and they deserve a chance with the entire country watching them.
Speaking of bowl game fun, first of all, shout out to Arkansas State for getting a bowl game win.
Yeah, for sure.
A Mid-South team. But the Bowling Green punter launching a nuke on 4th and 20.
Cannon.
Incredible.
He had a cannon. That was a great spiral, too.
They've been waiting all year to
I think that was a different punter than the one. Did you see later in the game? The punter on 4th and 6, I think, in their own territory. I think it was late third quarter. He just kept running with it, to his right.
Yeah.
And then he decided to take off, and he was 3 yards short, and the Bowling Green coach was not happy with him at all. Terrible decision by him. Shout out Arkansas State. They won 8 games as well this season. And again, I do think going back to, and I think back to Memphis a little bit last year, winning these games against a quality opponent from an unfamiliar conference, I do think, and on national stage of that, I do think it gives you a little bit of momentum going into the offseason, going into next season. So I think that, keep these games going. What was last night's game? The 68 Ventures Bowl or something like that. And we've got all kinds of bowl games.
Also, I don't know when this went final, but I'm finding out in real time here that Navy defeated Oklahoma.
Navy beat Oklahoma. Did they really?
Great stuff. 21-20.
I was at Oklahoma was up 14-0 because I had that game on at the gym on the treadmill I was on. Oklahoma was up 14-0, and then Navy scored a big 14-7.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, good for the midshipmen, man. I mean, obviously we saw what they did to Memphis earlier in the year, and they kind of cooled off towards the end, but that's got to be their best season in a long, long time. So
I would think so.
Salute the troops in more ways than one. All right, let's talk playoffs on this unnoted college football.
You want to get to a break first?
Yes, actually. I keep forgetting we got to hit these breaks. We will be right back in 30 seconds on Fast 5 Sports. All right, welcome back to Fast 5 Sports alongside Jacob Gallant. I am Matt Infield. We just got done talking about the AutoZone Liberty Bowl going down in Memphis tonight. On Tuesday, we have the quarterfinals of the college football playoff kicking off with, do we have a schedule for this or not?
I do have a schedule.
Let's go. We got a schedule for everything, baby. All right, we got Penn State fresh off throttling SMU last week neutral site game. I got to get used to this because the first round games were at college stadiums.
Yeah, this one's the Fiesta Bowl.
Yep, this is the Fiesta Bowl against Boise State, the Group of 5 representative this year. We have Texas fresh off a, comfortable enough win, we'll call it, over Clemson.
Yeah.
Taking on the Big 12 champs, Arizona State, another one of the cool stories of the season. That is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Big 10 rematch from earlier in the season. Really looking forward to this one. The Rose Bowl, and I think rightfully so. Ohio State and Oregon, a pair of Big 10 rivals, which sounds really weird to say. And then finally, I think another sneakily really good game. Notre Dame and Georgia at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. It is the All-State Sugar Bowl. So a lot's been made about the results of the first weekend of games. Obviously, Notre Dame beat up on Indiana real bad. Penn State did the same to SMU. Clemson, Texas was semi-competitive. It wasn't like a total thrashing. And then, man, Ohio State, what they did to Tennessee was wildly impressive because I was kind of thinking if there was going to be an upset that weekend, it was going to be Tennessee over Ohio State, and the Buckeyes had no interest in that. But, listen, obviously there's fueled a lot of discussion about did the committee right? Should teams like Ole Miss and Alabama have been in? This, that. Blowouts happen in every playoff. Blowouts will probably happen in this round as well, by the way. Like, I would not put it past anything that a couple of these teams...
I could see at least two. Yeah.
Get their doors blown off here. Blowouts happen in every single playoff format, and that is totally fine. Going on to, like the NFL in a couple weeks when we get to playoffs, I bet there will be some first-round blowouts there.
I think the takeaway here is not that they put the wrong teams in. I think this is just what you get for going to 12 teams.
Yeah.
I think there's an obvious talent gap. I don't think Arizona State is really one of the 8 best teams in the country, but they deserve the shot to be there.
Yeah.
So you got to put them in.
I mean,
that's just what you get with 12
And to
teams.
me, that is the thing above anything is if you're going to go from 4, which I think there are probably, if you put 4, if you said the top 4 teams, I think that those are probably, especially this year, pretty tightly packed. Who those 4 are, I don't know. But the top 4, I would say there's probably a pretty close margin between the 2 of them, between the 4 of them. Once you go to 12, then yeah, obviously you're going to get some wider margins and some bigger gaps in talent and just overall quality of team. But I still think that they deserve to be there and they deserve a shot to play for it. And if they get blown out, they get blown out. Like, I'm fully prepared for some of the discourse that comes if Penn State blows out Boise State on Tuesday, which I think is possible. I mean, Boise State played Oregon really well early in their season. So I think they could definitely keep it close. It's going to be a heck of a running back matchup between Ashton Jeanty and Nick Singleton for Penn State. But listen, the resume has to matter. What you did during the season has to matter. If you wanted Ole Miss in, they shouldn't. And I think Ole Miss had more of a case at Alabama for what it's worth. They shouldn't have lost Kentucky at home. They shouldn't have lost to Florida on the road.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blame them for losing to LSU on the road on Saturday night in Death Valley. Really tough matchup. Alabama should not have lost by 20 to a mediocre at best Oklahoma team. They shouldn't have lost at Vanderbilt. Like, what you've done has to matter. You can't just say, well, if you put this team on a neutral field with this team, they'd be favored by 2 touchdowns. So they deserve a spot. No, that's not how it works. Like, the SEC, I think a lot of people point out, the SEC is undefeated in hypotheticals this year.
Yeah.
You can't run the sport on hypotheticals.
If you put Ole Miss or Alabama on the same field as Indiana, they're probably going to blow them out. But Indiana was 11-1 this year, so tough luck. They get a playoff spot.
Yeah. Now maybe
it doesn't really matter. They're a Big Ten team, so
maybe there needs to be modifications as far as like scheduling. But even that's going to vary year to year. You're never going to have equal schedules for every team in the SEC and the Big Ten and beyond that, the ACC and the Big 12. So
or sometimes a team that you think is going to be a top 10 at the beginning of the season ends up terrible. Sorry, Florida State.
Yeah. Like, there are going to be years where teams are going to take advantages of the way things are set up in front of them and make a run. And that's fine. Like, I don't really have a problem with it. I still think when this thing is all said and done, we're going to probably get a champion that we think is worthy.
Yeah.
I think that once we whittle this down to 4, more than likely we say, yeah, they all deserve to be here. Now, some roads are tougher than others. Obviously, Oregon's bracket is really tough, and I do think the biggest takeaway for me going to next year is we need to reseed this thing. If you want to give automatic qualifiers to the 4 highest-ranked conference champions, that's fine, but they shouldn't automatically be the 4 highest seeds. That would be my biggest takeaway. To me, I don't think that I can really justify putting Boise State ahead of Texas in the seeding, or Arizona State ahead of Ohio State. But that's for next year. For right now, it is what it is. I think these games I think there are going to be a couple of really fun games on here. Like I said, Penn State -11, and I could see it, especially in the trenches. I could see them giving Boise State some problems. But again, Boise State played Arizona really tough earlier this year. They've lost 1 game all year. They have the best offensive weapon in the sport. So
Yeah.
that could be fun. Texas 13.5-point favorites against Arizona State. I'm a little curious about that one. But again, I'm not an enormous believer in Quinn Ewers. So maybe Arizona State keeps that one tighter than anticipated.
Texas has looked good unless they play Georgia. They've
Yeah.
looked good every game this year, so
Ohio
they're not
State
playing Georgia yet.
Ohio State 2.5 favorites over Oregon is very interesting. I get after last weekend they're going to get some love, but I don't know. I have thought Oregon is the best
That's
team.
a strange line to me.
I've thought Oregon was the best team most of the season. Not far and away, but the team with the fewest blemishes, the best resume, and the team that I felt most confident in and week out.
I think Oregon above everything else, they're just the one team that hasn't just put up a dud. Like all the top teams, Ohio State put up a dud against Michigan. Georgia's had a few of them.
Yeah, everyone has blemishes.
Yeah. Oregon's just kind of the team that hasn't put up one of those games where we go, are they actually good? I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean, I could see Ohio State winning, but I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon just kind of breezed through that game either.
And then Georgia starting Gunnar Stockton in place of Carson Beck, who is out for the season with the UCL injury, up against Notre Dame, who put up, like we said, a really commanding performance against Indiana last week. To me, I think this game is going to be competitive, and Georgia's only 2-point favorites. But if Notre Dame plays to the standard they did against Indiana, I think they'll win that game.
Yeah. This one's a toss-up for me because, Georgia's just been so wishy-washy all year, and especially with a backup quarterback, I think Notre Dame's – I think I would lean Notre Dame going into this one. If Carson Beck was playing, maybe Georgia, but it's really a toss-up. I think that's the most interesting game of the weekend.
See, the thing is, Carson Beck doesn't even move the needle for me that much. Maybe a little bit just because we saw –
Yeah, but you're also rolling out a quarterback who hasn't really played all year other than a few snaps last week.
And we did see with Gunnar Stockton against Texas, that was a very, very run-heavy game plan after he came in. And Riley Leonard is far from perfect. He's very inconsistent to me, but I think that the clear quarterback advantage in that game does swing in Notre Dame's favor. So it's a good slate of games. Like, it's going to be enjoyable. It's going to be fun. What better way, You go into New Year's Eve, you get Penn State, Boise State, you get the drinks flowing a little bit. You wake up, you're probably not feeling too hot on New Year's Day. Guess what? You get to watch 3 college football playoff games all day. So that sounds pretty good to me. And I'm off Tuesday, Wednesday, but I will not be partying too hard at least. I'll look forward to that. That should be fun. All right, we are in the home stretch of the NFL regular season as well. Week 17 is underway. Shout out Netflix and the NFL for trying to take over Christmas from the NBA, although 2 dud games between the Chiefs and the Steelers, and then really bad game. Ravens just steamrolled the Texans.
And 4 good NBA games.
Yeah, I was going to say, the NBA had, was it 4 or 5?
Oh, 5.
It was 5, yeah. I think all 5 of them were good to some degree.
All competitive,
Yeah, obviously Lakers-Warriors was kind of the showstopper, the one that everyone's talked about. But, the NBA had a really good slate of games. But in that slate, the Chiefs beat the Steelers like we talked about, and they moved to 15-1. They clinched the number 1 seed once again. The AFC playoffs go through Arrowhead. And, listen, I learned my lesson last year. Last year I said, I don't know if this offense is good enough. I know Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. I'm on record saying I think he's the best player in the history of the sport. Or at least the player you would start your team. Like, if you did a draft of every player in the history of the sport, Patrick Mahomes would go number 1. And I said, I get all this. I get the defense is good, but I don't know if the offense is good enough. I learned my lesson last year. I'm not doing it again. I don't care what their point differential is. I don't care what their record of what score games is. I don't care if they haven't scored 30 points in a game this season. They just find ways to win. They are the best situational football team in the sport. They have been in every scenario possible, and they just find a way. They make limited, stupid mistakes. They are really smart about what they need, and are the margins small? Maybe. But they always come out on the right side of those margins. And if you watch enough football, especially if you watch enough bad football like I do in my team every week, there is a big difference in teams that know how to win these games and teams that know how to lose these games. So They're gonna rest all their starters next week, I imagine, in Denver or against the Broncos. So I bet they'll probably finish 15-2. They'll get the 1 seed. But I don't care. Like, Josh Allen's been amazing this year. Lamar's been amazing this year. I'm sure we'll talk about that. I'm picking the Chiefs to come out of the AFC until proven otherwise. I'm not picking against them.
It really does feel a lot like last year.
Yeah.
Last year we just they felt so flawed. We were like, well, Baltimore will handle them. They haven't played Baltimore, so yeah, it's.
And last year,
remember the same things.
Last year, remember on Christmas Day, they got whooped by the Raiders at home.
Yeah.
So right now, I think they're playing way better than they were last year.
Yeah, the difference is this year they're actually winning.
Yeah.
And they're ugly wins, except this week.
Yeah, this was
kind
pretty
of an easy win. But they've played a lot of close wins.
And I kind of like the way that the offense is coming together a little bit. Again, this is not the 2018-20 Mahomes launching 10 bombs down the field to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce killing everyone in the intermediate area of the field. Oh, he had a pretty good game on Christmas. But I like the way Xavier Worthy's come along for them. They figured out creative ways to use him. I think Kelce, once again, has kind of coasted through the regular season. I expect him to turn it on and play his best ball in January and February. DeAndre Hopkins didn't have a huge game the other day, but I think it's kind of that chain-moving outside receiver. He's solid. And, again, now they're going to have – I don't think Isaiah Pacheco is all the way back yet, but some combination of him and Kareem Hunt the year 2024. I think the run game is fine. And the defense is really good. That's really been their calling card, other than Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid the last couple of years. They've had awesome defenses under Steve Spagnuolo. So, again, until someone knocks them off, I'm not picking against them.
The onus is on, the Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson to figure that defense out and beat them.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is essentially Michael Jordan to them, and they are whoever you want to say, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, whoever. Like, they are, they're awesome. They're probably future Hall of Famers, no doubt about it, but they have to get over that hump. Maybe this could be the year because, Lamar was exceptional on Christmas night against the Texans. And it's so funny, too, because he only threw the ball 15 times. But it just felt like he was the best player on the field by miles. Yeah. Really impressive win for them, 31-2. And it's kind of reignited this MVP debate now between him and Josh Allen, because Josh Allen, I can tell you as a Josh Allen MVP bettor, that cashed out that ticket, made a little bit of money. That race has gotten tighter. And I'll just say this. The takes are really bad across the board right now on that race. A lot of people just taking hardline stances one way or the other. To me, either one of them is deserving. I would probably still lean Allen by a little bit right now. But if you think it's Lamar, that's cool. But there are people saying it's definitely Josh or it's definitely Lamar. And I don't think that's true either way.
It's kind of what you value more, because I think Allen means more for that Bills team, but Lamar is just kind of unlocked a new level with Derrick Henry behind him. He's just playing out of his mind. Yeah. So whether you value the skill that one's playing at or how important they are to the team.
Yeah,
and they're both winning.
And then the surrounding core a little bit, because I think Allen's playing his best ball, after they lose Stephon Diggs, and I think their weapons are okay. I think they're probably a little bit better than they're given credit for. But Lamar, obviously, we talked about Derrick Henry. Yeah. Zay Flowers really good. It's two tight ends, Andrews and Likely, Bateman. So I don't think there's a wrong answer between those two. I just think that if you're definitively saying one guy deserves it and the other one doesn't, then I think you're wrong there. Quick look ahead to this weekend. So we've got an interesting AFC wildcard race potentially shaping up. Really, the potential lies on if the Bengals can beat the Broncos tomorrow in Cincinnati. If they can, then that kind of opens the door for some teams.
They will also need Kansas City to try against Denver.
Right, which I don't think is going to happen. Yeah. And I think that someone brought up, if you're Kansas City, you probably want to lose that game against the Broncos because you probably don't want to let Burrow, Chase, and those
Burrow's
guys.
The only guy that's knocked them out of the playoffs recently.
Exactly. We've got, 3 games tomorrow. We've got Chargers, Patriots. Chargers have clinched a playoff spot, I believe. But they're playing for CD, obviously. I think they're a 6th seed right now.
I don't think the Chargers have clinched.
If they have it clinched, then they can.
I could be wrong. Definitely with a win.
But it's still an important game for their CD.
Yeah, Chargers have not clinched.
Okay. They win one of their last two. I think they're in.
Right. So.
And the Chargers reportedly had the tiebreaker over the Broncos.
Yeah. So that second and third wild card will be, it's between the Chargers, Broncos, and then Miami and Indianapolis are still in it, and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So two of those teams will get in.
Broncos Bengals tomorrow is interesting. I think it might. I was looking at forecast. I think it might rain in Cincinnati, but Broncos defense been pretty good most of the season. Justin Herbert kind of had his way with them last week, but it's going to be this Bengals offense is no joke. Obviously, Bengals defense is really bad, but the way that Burrow and Chase are playing right now, we're going to find out how good that defense really is. And then tomorrow night, the Saturday night cap, Cardinals versus Rams. Cardinals eliminated with just a horrible loss in Carolina last week, and then
brutal.
So the Rams situation is complicated. I want to say they can clinch the West with a win, but because basically the way that they explain it.
Would they have the tiebreaker over Seattle?
Yes, I think they would have the tiebreaker over Seattle. God, if you sat through that Thursday night game like I did last night, God bless you. Tough one. But yeah, I think the Rams can clinch with the win tomorrow, while the Cardinals will try and play.
Yeah, so
spoiler.
So the NFC is not set yet.
No.
But I think what likely is going to happen is whoever loses the NFC South is probably getting knocked out between Atlanta and Tampa.
Right.
So the loser of that's probably missing the playoffs.
I think from what I understand, I think Tampa can get a wild card spot. It's unlikely, but basically, if the Commanders win one of their last 2 games, they're in.
Yep.
So I think the Buccaneers, though, because they have the tiebreaker over the Commanders, if they win their last 2 and the Commanders lose their last 2, then they could get in. By the way, Commanders playing on Sunday Night Football right here in Action Juice 5. Jaden Daniels versus Michael Penix Jr., so that should be a pretty fun matchup. And then we've got your boys, probably the matchup of the weekend, your boys versus the Vikings on Sunday.
I would say that's probably the best matchup of the week.
And then
that'll be interesting.
Lions-Niners, Monday Night Football, which probably looked awesome at the beginning of the season, but now the Niners have been knocked out of playoff contention. But important game for Detroit in terms of seeding. I mean, the NFC North is going to have probably they're going to have 3 12-plus win teams.
Detroit could get the 1 seed if Green Bay wins and they win.
Yes.
Detroit would lock up the 1 seed.
Man, that NFC North this year, one of the other than the Bears, but outrageous. The top 3 teams. I mean, just one of the best divisions in football in a long time.
Well, there was a point in time the Bears were 4-2, and then
now they are 4-12. And now they are 4-12.
The curse of not trying on a Hail Mary.
All right, should we get out of here with some trivia?
Let's do it.
Appropriately for the AutoZone Liberty Bowl?
Yeah, as I hinted, we got some Liberty Bowl trivia. Found some interesting facts when I was researching this. So, did you know the Liberty Bowl, the first Liberty Bowl was not played in Memphis? There were 2 cities that hosted the Liberty Bowl before Memphis. Do you know what they are?
Ooh, this is good. Philadelphia?
Yeah, pretty intuitive answer, but there's another one.
Liberty Bowl. New Orleans?
No.
Can you give me a general region of the country?
Northeast.
Boston?
No.
DC?
No.
Okay.
Atlantic City.
Whoa.
They hosted 1 Liberty Bowl.
Whoa, that is very random.
It started in Philadelphia. The first was played in Memphis in 1965. Can you name me the 2 teams that played in that? A couple of SEC teams.
Current SEC teams?
Yeah.
Arkansas?
1965. No, not Arkansas.
Okay, I was going to say, they played enough. Mississippi State?
No. You're close.
Ole Miss?
Yeah.
Okay. And Ole Miss and Georgia?
No.
South Carolina? Vandy? Just get to me.
Auburn. So
Auburn.
the first Liberty Bowl in Memphis was played December 18th, 1965. Almost defeated Auburn 13-7.
Wow. Barber was like Seahawks Bears last night.
I believe while I was looking this up, Ole Miss is 4-0 in the Liberty Bowl, so they never lost. Yeah, I think we discussed this one earlier, so I'll just give you the answer. The highest scoring Liberty Bowl in history.
2 years ago, Arkansas versus Kansas.
It was the game 2 years ago, 55-53.
Insane game.
triple overtime. Yeah. Here's a fun one. So there's 2, and I'll give you the years to make it a little easier. There's 2 college, well, there might be more, but I found 2. College Football Hall of Famers that have won Liberty Bowl MVP, back-to-back seasons, 1983 and 84. Can you name them?
So 2 separate guys, one in 83, one in 84.
Yes, Liberty Bowl MVP. They're both in the College Football Hall of Fame.
In the 80s. You give me positions.
Quarterback and a running back.
Quarterback and a running back.
One of these guys won the Heisman, the quarterback.
Won the Heisman. Okay, Heisman winning quarterback in the 80s. And the running back. Either of the notable NFL players?
Yeah. For different reasons, they didn't have great NFL careers. They're mostly known as college guys, but like legendary college football players.
I don't know. Give it to me.
Doug Flutie and Bo Jackson.
Oh, wow. That's a couple of powerhouse names.
Liberty Bowl MVPs back-to-back years.
That is a couple of powerhouse names. Very similar builds, too.
Yeah, yeah. You might mistake them on the street for each other.
All right, is that what we got?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So with that, like we said, we have the AutoZone Liberty Bowl coming up tonight at 6. Catch me out there with a live preview on Act 5 at 5, and then I'll be I'll be shooting the game, getting post-game, so keep it locked in. But with that, that's our last Fast 5 of the 2024 year. We'll be back next Friday. Will you be here?
I'll be here.
I'll be here too. I believe so, at least.
We'll be
It's
back
my
next
college.
week.
Unless something happens, I'll be here. So for the last time in 2024, for Jacob Gallant, I'm Matt Infield. Thank you so much for watching. Act 5 at 3:30 is coming up next. We're in just